Right.
Okay. Mr. Bergeron, you're presenting on behalf of the agent.
Yes, I am.
Please state your name and
I'm Bruce Bergeron, and this is Ryan Bergeron.
And I'm Ryan, yeah, Bruce and Ryan.
please proceed.
So the variance application that we have submitted is for a very unique property that we have a purchase and sale agreement on right now. And one of the conditions of the purchase and sale agreement is that we're able to use the property as we have envisioned using it. And our plan for the property involves a car wash in the lower property section of the property, closest to Route 4. And in the upper part of the property, some self-storage buildings. We have 4 buildings envisioned for that part of the property. And the CB zone permits both uses as part of the CB zone, but the R1 zone, which is the upper part of which intersects the upper part of the property, it doesn't allow for the self-storage facility without the permit. So that's why we're here. The property is in our opinion, quite unique in the fact that it is intersected by two different zones. And the majority of the zone is in the CB, with the smaller section being in the R1. And the actual 300-foot setback, which delineates the difference between CB and R1, is a dashed line that's intersects the second to last building on this and this.
Wait a minute, wait, can you say that again? Sorry.
Yes.
Dotted line, right?
So there's
There's a lot
a
of
couple of
dotted
dotted
lines.
lines. There's a lot of dotted lines. So when you look at the 4 different buildings, our engineer, using 300 feet from the edge of the property up, has it intersecting the second to last building.
Okay, I see.
We do have a survey in progress, so we don't actually have surveyed dimensions yet. That was an estimated from the engineer. So, just restating that, our plan is to have 4 self-storage buildings in there. That's what we think will be required to be, to make the property financially viable. We, again, are emphasizing the fact that we have a very unique situation with the property being intersected with the 2 different zones, and to me, that's exactly why the variance process is a perfect case for the variance process and why it exists. There's a very unique situation here to consider.
So it's all one lot?
It's all one lot. Yes, it is.
Could you just up there, just for everybody to see the bigger picture, Rob, just to find approximately where the difference between the CB and the R1 is? You said it was about 350
Yeah,
feet.
so we have a measuring tool on our GIS, which I can give you right now. This is showing a line here, which I believe to be inaccurate, as the description in our zoning ordinance will tell you it's 350 feet from the road back. So as I draw this, you're going to see the 350 feet right there. So as Bruce indicated, it's about, I would describe it as about the 66% line. It's so about the back third of the property would be in the R1.
So Rob, what does that sort of dotted thing, that sort of brown dotted stuff represent? That goes kind of around that.
Right here?
Yes, what is that?
That's a driveway.
That's the driveway.
It's the existing driveway.
Existing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it has a driveway that's accessed off of Route 4 down here,
right, and
and it
off of
also
the street.
exits out onto Flanders.
Okay.
A couple years
What's
ago, we
that
had
thing
trouble with
that
them.
looks like a mobile home, that
It is.
rectangle.
Right here, this one,
Yeah,
that's the business. That's Brownie's
oh,
Auto.
that's
Auto.
Brownie's Auto, okay. Well, then, In the purple, that's that house where the guy sells bicycles.
Down
The
here.
long frame.
Yeah, it's a multifamily apartment, yeah. I don't know about the bicycle part, but it's a
Oh,
multifamily.
he's a nice guy, give me a bicycle.
Is that right?
But he doesn't live there anymore.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Would the Browns building be taken down?
Yes, the brown building would be taken down and replaced with a smaller building. It would be a two-bay car wash down there. And
They just built the car wash.
Yeah.
Does that field need 2 car washes?
the answer is, I believe this site will be a very good location for a car wash. Yes, yes. And we have experience. We operate a couple of car washes, so it is a business we understand.
So Jake's is
They're
gonna have a
not-
car wash?
They're only a couple miles apart.
He is, James.
Yes,
He is
I am
Jake's,
Jake's, yeah.
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's- So yes, we have one in Lebanon, yes.
But they're only a couple miles apart.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, we think this car wash site will be a good site for us.
Our attention should probably be focused on whether we want to grant this variance or not.
Yeah, the car
Correct, yeah.
wash is not the issue at all, because that's in the CB zone and that's a permitted use.
Right.
The self-storage facility is also permitted in the CB zone. And, you know, 2 or more of the buildings as we envision it would be in the CB zone. And the variance is for us to be able to put the building, the extra buildings at the top in the R1 zone. So that's the only part of this that requires the variance.
We're not being asked to look at any of the setbacks at this point in time. So the setbacks on the side and such like that, so that's not.
He's
on-
asking for a use variance, not a.
Correct.
not an
Correct, yeah,
area
use variance, correct, yeah. That's correct, yeah.
Can somebody help me understand why a delineation of 2 different zones goes to the middle of a property, existing property?
Well, that's, I would say, the history there is that when they defined the zoning districts, they used measurements, and some of them happened to line up with property lines, and some of them didn't.
They just went 350 feet from the road.
Exactly.
That's it, right straight down.
So I can tell you that there's municipal sewer and water service available at this site, which obviously is important for the car wash, less so for the storage. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic, answering your question. That's a very busy road, somewhere in the vicinity of 14 to 15,000 cars a day go by that spot. That's equivalent to about 1 lane of Interstate 89. So pick your lane, north or southbound, so it's a very busy spot, obviously. But yeah, so obviously the unique characteristic from my perspective is that you're standing on a lot and literally I can do one thing here. There's a boundary that was created somewhere in time. I can't do that same thing here. So that's the sort of
the same one, right?
unique characteristic of this. We always talk about variance as being obviously very unique to a property.
Let me just ask some more questions. Please feel free if you have other questions.
I have some observations.
Can I just one more question, then
Yeah.
I'll turn it to you,
Yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
next. Did the existing business use any of this back property for the business at all?
He had some cars parked back there, and some abandoned vehicles and things. Other than that, the rest of it was mowed.
It was mowed, okay.
Yeah.
Mike, you have some observations? And then I'm gonna ask the public for some comments too, so.
I have another question after that.
Yeah.
Want to go ahead and ask your question?
Well, I guess I don't know what's going on. I thought that lot back there was being considered for the new firehouse and ambulance and all that kind of stuff, because it was an ideal spot.
It
He
was
said-
considered at one
This,
point.
but he has a P&S agreement right now for it, so it's not,
Yeah,
that's not
so
part
it
of it.
can't happen, but I was just
Yeah.
sitting here saying, wait a minute.
It was considered at one point, but they moved on to other parcels.
So I'm inclined to say, yeah, let's do this. And usually usually I stick on the idea of hardship. Normally, if this wasn't such an interesting situation, I'd say this doesn't qualify as hardship, but I think the majority of the parcel is in the CB, and it's not a stretch to allow this kind of a quiet, low impact use to intrude into the R1 just a little bit. What I ask is that there be stipulations on the grant of the variance. Well, I don't know if there need to be any conditions, but I would just like to make sure that it's not possible for somebody down the road to buy the property and treat it as general commercial. I'd like to be very clear that this is not changing the zoning boundaries, that this particular property has a variance that allows a self-storage facility. And I don't think that requires any special conditions.
The thing up front does not mention the car wash. That's why I'm just, this is for a car wash. Your supporting documents do, but the public hearing, you get it.
Yeah, the variance is for him to put the storage on the R1. He doesn't need a variance to put the car
Okay,
wash.
thank you.
That's all set.
Appreciate that.
And I would just like to ask, just real briefly, for your consideration, I'd love to ask the applicant the type of use. My understanding of self-storage is very, when you own a self-storage locker, you maybe visit it once or twice a year, right? And it's not.
There is,
it's not a
so,
heavy use.
Mike mentioned to it, and we totally agree in that it's a very low impact business. It's closed from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. So there's no use at all. And during the opening of the day, it's visited very rarely. It's the second most quietest use of a piece of property I know, second to a cemetery. It's a very, very low impact. Noise is very little traffic, very little noise.
I have two questions. One is, just looking at the lines here, and I don't know, my question is, this sort of cuts through one of these buildings. Is there some way you could, turn them so that 3 whole ones get on the property if they were placed a little bit differently? So you could have the same amount of buildings, but maybe not necessarily
We
in
definitely,
that
yeah.
area?
So we definitely considered the alignment of the buildings, because of the setbacks, because of the distance you need between buildings in order for vehicles to get through, to their
Right,
storage units. Because you got to be able
right.
that, it's got to be 2 cars wide or 2 trucks wide, because if someone's parked in front of their building, their unit, somebody else needs to be able to get by them to get to their unit. So we couldn't get the buildings any closer together. We tried them. And we
Okay.
also had to be conscious of snow plowing. We have to be able to remove
Which
plow
brings me
snow.
to my next question. So what sort of surface will this have? I mean, the buildings will obviously take up a lot of, render a certain amount of that surface impermeable. What do you plan for
So
the,
asphalt would be the most likely. If not, asphalt would be hard packed.
so the area that you've got here in white, that would be the area that would be paved
Correct, yep.
or whatever,
Or
would
hard
have
pack,
some
that
sort
is
of
correct.
surface on it.
Yep.
Will there be like an 8-foot chain link fence around it?
Yeah, it would be fenced as well, and it'd be gated, so the gate would be closed. The gate would close automatically at night, reopen automatically in the morning. Yeah,
Would there be an attendant?
there would not be an attendant. Nope.
Well, you said hard pack, is that permeable?
I don't think it's considered permeable.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
it's considered
It's impermeable.
Yeah.
It's impermeable.
Yeah, to me, that's a very big concern here. This is a huge, that's a lot of
So the planning
paved
board,
area and a lot of runoff, but
so
maybe
if
that's not
if he
for
does
us.
get his approval from you guys, the variance, planning board would certainly get a crack at him for impermeable surface and landscaping, fencing and lighting. All of the sort of neighborhood impacts would certainly be addressed and considered during that process. Just throwing that.
Yeah, no, because to me, that's a concern, but it's not our concern.
Sue?
Yes, I'm really concerned that these are surrounded by residents, people living there. And that there's a lot of housing there. And this really goes against what we have to to provide the harmonious development of the land and its environment. And the environment there is housing. And that might have something to do why they have that line from the CB district, you know, drawn where it is. Because most of your businesses like Brownies is right off the road, they can get there. With this, I'm gonna ask you, will they be like your, the one in Lebanon, where you go in and there's a storage unit and lots of times the parking, the water, the car wash, you have to go all the way in into around the storage units. If there's a line, now do you intend to do that too?
Nope, so with this site, we've queued it up so that the car wash is in the front of the property towards Route 4.
Yeah,
And it will be gated off, the storage unit will be gated off, so there will be no line going through the storage unit ever. So car wash customers will enter and exit the car wash from Route 4. Yeah. And the storage customers would access the storage units from Flanders.
So,
Could you put the zoning map up there for me?
yeah, Rob, yeah, I also have a question.
Zoning
So,
map is up, it's just hard to see. Let's see if I can click off of it for you. See, there's a line right in there, can you see it?
oh,
And as
between
I
the,
said, the line is more appropriately put here because of the measurement. Our zoning layer is a little inaccurate.
so everything around it is residential, am I not mistaken? What's
So all
the,
this land out in the front is CB. And
okay,
then the
That's right.
350-foot boundary is drawn right about in here. It follows, I can zoom out a little bit, you might see it a little better.
yeah, that'd be helpful.
but what exists there is residential. I mean, that's,
In the back, exactly. Yeah. But in the
Well,
front, it's
Yeah,
CB.
the properties behind this are residential, but this property is.
Right along
And the
CB.
property next to it,
All
there's
the way
where the
around the
CB
corner.
is, that's all commercial.
Yes,
Wait.
so this is the roller rink.
I don't
here.
Okay.
know that, but I'm
This
just-
is the Tom Hersey
Right.
used equipment dealership.
Right,
This is the Enfield garage. Now it's Bobby Line's North Country Medical Courier and Enfield Airport and Revision Energy are located in there. You know, I think, don't forget, in the R1, you could put multifamily housing there. I don't know, I mean, it's a question of do you think multifamily housing is a more intense use than self-storage longer?
but it's
It's
also
still-
something the town
it's still
wants.
residential, whatever, I mean, whatever,
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
a.
May I make another statement?
Yeah, then I want to ask the public after you, Michael.
Go ahead.
Do you have comments back there in the public?
I'm the next door person that borders that land.
Where,
Right
there, okay,
And I don't personally think that storage units can be set up without people coming and going all the time. Our street already, when school opens or closes, as busy as it is, that route comes in and goes around there. It's just gonna cause more, and I don't look forward to lights all the time, a fence bordering my property. We have a lot of game that comes in there. We've had moose, we've had deer, we've had bear that just come through there all the time. Maybe nobody else cares. I do. But I don't want this. I just don't want this done. It's my property. I've tried to buy that land off of him a long time ago for this reason. I wanted a buffer zone between us and everything else, but it was a little pricey for my wife and I. And I'm sorry, I'm all for business. I don't think we need 2 car washes in Enfield to begin with. This guy up on the hill is just getting ready to open his. He's put his time and effort into the one at the top of the hill. Why do we need 2? That's my question. But I can't get into it. It really bothers me.
We're
We've
concerned
got
about.
animals coming through, and there is wetlands, kind of like wetlands on the back of that. And if they're building the storage units from 300 feet back, is that what I'm understanding it has to be 300 feet from the road.
You have what?
How do you do that?
What do you mean?
The field's only so long.
300 feet is the
No.
definition.
Commercial.
Of the zone.
It isn't commercial, that's residential, that big green field.
Not
The
in it.
only thing,
Yeah,
here- the whole thing is residential next to me. That's not for that commercial. You're trying to get a variance for
The
it.
350 refers to, from Route 4 north is the commercial property.
Oh, I thought it was from the street. He kept showing the arrow going this way.
Yeah, maybe you can put it back up.
I mean, how,
See what
it
the number-
doesn't matter.
see what
What I'm
the number
coming down
5
to
is.
say, I'm sorry, I have nothing against you people, I just don't.
Well, one of the things.
We don't need
well,
this. Right, you just showed on the screen, I thought it was 350 feet from my street back.
Not from Plain.
Okay,
No,
well, I
no.
misunderstood, the guy was going like this with the arrow.
Yeah.
So anyway,
It's 350 feet.
that's my piece, my wife's.
Would she
And-
like to say something? Would
What
you
else?
like to
Yeah,
add
Yeah,
something?
actually, I mean, I know you're talking fence, but, and how many lights you're gonna have, because we're like, we're kind of like our privacy,
Yeah.
we don't want all the lights shining into our property at night. I understand you have to have lights for your business, but I don't know, if you have a fence, can it be one that got screening of some type on it, so we
I
don't
would-
have to see it?
I would like to respond to
Certainly can.
that.
Yep.
As the planner, I could give them some information about that.
And if I could have a second, I just wanted to provide some more details about a couple of his concerns. If it's possible.
Go ahead.
Okay, so one of the concerns was about cars coming and going all, that doesn't happen with self-storage. It's locked
You
up.
mean
It's-
you're closing that road
it's-
off?
The property.
It goes to the, right now, the road, the dirt road that goes.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
closing that off.
Yeah, so let me see if I can. And you did receive, this right here, you have, it, but I'll go up here for everyone else to see it, but yeah.
We did.
So the self-storage units are here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. This area here would all be fenced in. And there'll be a gate right here. And that gate closes at 7 PM. At 7 PM, nobody can go in and out of this property.
So the entrance to there is down this way.
The entrance to the self-storage is here.
But the
Yeah.
fact is,
And so, but your concern was people going in and out of, I just want to make it very clear, after 7
yeah,
PM,
okay,
nobody comes in this property. It's no.
the
noise,
gate is
no
out
people,
on
no
our
nothing.
street.
What's that?
Right.
The gate is out on the street
Yeah,
itself.
the gate's up here.
But that doesn't change the fact that all
No, it
this is gonna
changes
be
if you
fenced
said
in.
people are coming and going all
Right.
times of night. I'm just trying to emphasize that that's not the
Okay,
case.
that's good.
All right, so
Well,
nobody comes in here after 7 PM. Okay, you put a house back here, two-family home, they can come. It's all time of the night, they can play music, they can have parties, they can do all kinds of things.
But their
There's
house,
not gonna be any noise. Light, we can definitely mitigate light to the desire of the planning board, we can do that. That's a
House
planning
and
board.
fence it too.
So that's possible. But again, I just want to emphasize that this becomes a ghost town at 7 PM. And nothing happens until 7 AM.
Thank you.
Rob, you had
how do you
something.
manage that?
It's a gate.
Who's gonna be there to open it at 7 and 8? And
It opens the door all by itself.
Oh,
The computer says, no, your cards don't work after 7 PM.
We don't even get
no,
cards.
but I'm
Yeah,
just
we-
saying,
we don't
we get a
even
lot
get-
of traffic on that street, and this,
So
it
this
will cause some more traffic.
This will not cause any more, after 7 PM, there's no traffic.
They don't always have to leave.
Right.
Route 4, they can go around, but
No, there'll be a gate there. There'll be a
No, I mean-
gate separate.
when they go into your place, that's all. Anyway,
So I
Back to the
just, I
fence.
think you're misunderstanding exactly how the.
no,
project
no,
begins.
I'm not misunderstanding. I understand what you're saying. It goes in from there's a gate on that street there,
Mhm,
right? That
mhm.
so-called street. It is still isn't gonna stop the fencing. It's gonna be unsightly. My wife and I have enjoyed that property for 10 years.
Yeah, how.
And watched, like I
how
say, we have
tall?
got more game animals on our property than the mountain up there on Moose Mountain. Turkeys every
And
day.
buildings?
I'm sorry, which question?
Sorry, I just was asking, wanted to clarify, how tall will the buildings be?
They're 1 story tall. I think they're about 10 or 11 feet tall or something like that. So they're not tall. A lot shorter than a house, a 2-story home.
Right.
How many?
4
There are
ceilings.
4,
No,
right?
but how many units?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
We haven't designed the number of units yet. Yeah.
Well, that, I think that's important.
Why do you think that's important?
Because of traffic and use.
So
I-
self-storage, you
stuck on the
might have 20
residential.
cars a day or something. It's something very, very, very limited.
What do you get on in the Lebanon one?
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, how many, you have a law
Well, that
or
one-
something? That's a.
What's the question? Well, that, in terms of traffic, that, the self-storage in Lebanon's got self-storage, you've got commercial properties that who share, you got the car wash, you got the drive-through, the coffee shop, so we really
You
couldn't say
can't
exactly
judge from
because so
that.
many people use it.
How many feet between that fence and this gentleman's property line on the back of the storage? thing?
Well, theoretically, whatever the setback requirements are for the town is where a fence can go to a neighboring property. I don't know what that number is, a setback.
Within
number,
a foot of
whatever.
the property
The
line.
setback number, yeah, whatever the setback is.
15 feet.
Yeah. So right now, we got, the building is, the last building is 60 feet or so from the back of the property, the way we did design it. So it's not right, the building is not right on that back property.
Let's ask Rob.
It's 60 feet or more.
Yeah, Rob's had an observation tonight.
Planning,
So there's some room there.
Yeah, there's about 60 feet or more, yeah.
okay, planning will look at the lights, will look at the fence. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so, the planning site plan review process, the concerns of the neighborhood will be addressed. We have had situations where neighbor has requested screening. So we can ask to plant evergreens to screen a fence. Lighting in the town is required to be what's called dark sky compliant, which means it has to be full cutoff fixture, meaning the bulb is up in a fixture and you can't see the bulb from the side. So the light is supposed to be shining down. I would imagine it's up to the site plan review that they would address your concerns in terms of illumination at night.
Okay,
maybe
so let's-
shut the lights off, that kind of stuff.
Okay,
So
so
there's lots of that stuff that comes up during site plan review.
And one of the things I also wanted to update the board on is in terms of the neighbors, we've spoken previously, I went and introduced myself and talked about what my plans were. I also did the same thing with all the other neighbors, and we talked to, I think, virtually every neighbor up and down Flanders up to the first 6 or 7 properties, and then on the other side to us on the left side. And we had very positive responses from all of them. Didn't have, a couple of people talked about the driveway or so, but we had excellent feedback and asked for input, and again, we're very pleased with the response from the neighbors who are not here.
So you had some concerns, you would talk about them? Concerns, you have some concerns,
I still am stuck on the residential, and I would also like to know what abuts this property, what's the slope on that yellow part that where you, on the left side? What is that?
There's a hill there.
So it's a slope, and he's talking about the animals. I just don't like having to change the use of, the zone.
Can I just,
And I
But
think
she
what
had
it's like,
I
when
think,
it's residential,
I think she had a question.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
that it should stay residential, because when we did the zoning ordinance, we tried to do that, so we encourage that along there. Well, it's also a lot of history there, but regardless.
Mike? I'm sorry. Finish.
It goes with the rest of the area.
See, the issue that I have, I'm sorry, Michael, just one comment, is that it's already being used commercially, there's one lot. That one lot is, your left foot's on one side.
It's
your right-
okay, that's all right.
I have a hard
Say,
time understanding, how you can divide my property up and say, this part you can do this with as far as zoning ordinance. If it was a wetland or something along that line, I can understand it, but this is
well,
one piece of property.
that's,
It seems
you
kind
know,
of like
that's
an
my opinion. I
unfortunate
don't think it's
fluke.
in the best interest of the public.
But 350
And I
is
think
an arbitrary line.
I think it would take down property values around there. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Mike?
no, I appreciate hearing your opinion on those.
So,
Your public had a question they wanted to
Please.
have some input on.
I mean, do you have any idea how wet that field gets? It stays wet almost year long. Matter of fact, there's still a puddle down there by the apple tree right now. So whatever you put in, whether it's pressure run or crap, where's all that water drainage gonna go? Across the
Yeah, so
street to the neighbors?
No, we do things right. We have things engineered by professionals and all construction and building, issues would be dealt with, but, and that's true whether it's a two-family home or a single-family home, or if it's a self-storage building that is literally just on a pad. Basically a pad is gonna have the least effect on the property, which is what we have. This is just a pad. There's no cellar, there's no nothing like that. So
I think.
drainage would be engineered to work according to all of the state and town requirements. Again, those are issues that this property would have to be following, whether there's anything being done. So it's not the
Well-
difference between a
And
single
we-
family home or this is no different.
And we did have a wetland study done. It's hard to see on this.
And why is it not in the plan?
It is, it's on
it's
here.
on what we gave
It's
you.
on here, yep. So we,
Where? On that? piece?
on this on the picture of our engineering drawing. It's hard to see. It's kind of over here on in the dark over there, but, so we have had that done and this current drawing does take that into.
I
Yeah,
think-
we're not affecting
All the
that area at all.
setbacks are followed.
I think it's a good point about the slope, and I wondered about that. The water that comes down, if the neighbors see saying it's flooded all year, will that mean it holds the water, it prevents flooding? As far as, that's the purpose. So this side, so it is, all this is wetland.
No, not anywhere near.
That's not what I'm saying. But it does stay very, up near the very edge where the stone wall is, it stays wet there year round.
That duct's
Further
here.
down the field, it doesn't.
And that part, we aren't touching that part.
Right,
It'll stay as it is
saw that.
natural.
But I know that the neighbors across the street have some concern because right now, there's a culvert and it goes down across their property, floods their property every spring.
Which street? Flanders?
Flanders, yes.
Maybe the Bergeron
Maybe.
Yeah.
company will be able to improve that.
Improve that, sure. Yeah, and I've talked to those neighbors and we had a very good conversation.
The
about
girls?
that.
Across the
Yeah.
street.
Well, I don't
I
know, I
talked to
know
everybody
that,
on that property.
right,
Yeah.
well, I
I know
talked to
there's
them
a mother and
too.
a father and a daughter.
She thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know they're a little concerned about the lights because they've been on the second floor. It's gonna be.
Yeah, but, yeah, self-storage has a very little light, so it's less likely to have a house.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. The lighting
Yeah,
is
it's
Are
very.
there any other comments from the public or from, I'm about to close the public hearing if nobody has any more comments from this side here, because I think we've heard yours and understand your concerns, understand your remediation, the things you're talking about. I think we've had good input from both sides. I appreciate it. We now enter into the executive session where we talk amongst ourselves and go through the 5 criteria and talk about findings of facts. And based upon that, then we will take a vote at the end of it after we go through the criteria. Then we will take our vote on a motion that will be put forward by somebody on the board.
Mr. Chair, before we start,
Please.
I'm aware that, I think we don't have a definition of self-storage unit as a use. Wait for Rob to come back so I can ask you. Do we have self-storage as a defined use in our zoning ordinance?
Go to that section.
No, we do not, Mike.
Thank you. So as I was listening to people talk and raise good points, I was reminded that first, we are talking about granting a variance to the land. Now, I've seen these people do development and they do really good work, so I'm not worried about what they're going to do with the property. What I'm more concerned with is how we write, if we decide to vote in favor of the variance, how do we write conditions to ensure that the future owner of the property will be responsible with it as well? Here are some things I came up with just jotting down that need to be considered. And because we don't have this written into the zoning ordinance yet, I might suggest that we continue this to another time so that we can research definitions of self-storage units and write an appropriate approval if we decide to do that. And I'm not asking for your input right now, sir. I was concerned about the possibility of somebody running a business in a storage unit. I was concerned about hazardous material storage in a self-storage unit. I was concerned about lighting, signage, and screening, how those might impact the neighbors. I was concerned about perhaps limiting hours of operation. Their suggestion of, I'm guessing they're talking about running from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That makes sense. I'd rather have it 7 to 5, but I understand why you couldn't do that really. But we might want to put something like that into the, as a condition of approval. Somebody talked about the traffic line running back, the traffic for the car wash running back to the self-storage unit, and it was heartening to hear that there would be no connection. But that might be a good condition just to put in, just to say that traffic for the CB section of the property cannot be allowed to extend onto the R1 section of the property. Am I clear about that?
You want a separation from the car wash to the self-storage that you can't, traffic can be cross-pollinated.
More generally, a separation between the zoning areas so that the business traffic in CB can't bleed over into the R1.
So I have a question. So even, so if we, because if we're granting, let's see if I can say this, express this up. So if we're granting a variance, that doesn't change the definition of it. What I'm saying is, so it still remains essentially a residential property, except for this. Okay, so, all right, sorry about that, because that's what I was saying, because it would still be residential, essentially be residential property,
Yes.
except for that. Okay.
The way I think of it is when we grant a variance, we are giving permission for the people to break the zoning law under special conditions.
Right.
It doesn't
But it
change the
doesn't
law.
change the zoning.
It does not change the law at all.
So it
We
would,
can't really break the law.
Well, that's
so
what
it
we're
would
can't
still,
rewrite the
the
zoning.
residential thing would apply to the extent that, yes.
So they're still beholden in that, in any construction they do in the R1 portion of the property, they're still beholden to all the sign regulations, the
They're
lighting
good, exactly,
regulations, the
still.
setbacks, et cetera, that meet the R1.
Because it will still be residential property.
And that's all on the planning board to approve. And if somebody goes to the planning board and sees something happening that they don't like, that they think violates the law or the zoning ordinance, they can appeal the planning board's decision. And that appeal will come to this body acting in a different role. But we can't talk about planning issues. We can, but they're not facts that we have to take into consideration.
Let's talk about the definition of a self-storage business and understand that. Now, this is not a warehouse, so we take warehouse out of the thing. Here's a retail business, any consumer can walk in there and sign up to get a space there. So it is retail in the fact that it is dealing with a consumer. It's not a grocery store, but it is a retail operation. And so when I looked at going through the definition, understanding what use, I said, this is not it classified as a warehouse if it was wholesale, but this is a retail application. So I look at it being a retail business, a service business in that concept, retail service business. That's how I look at it.
Okay.
That was the way the approach that I took on it.
Let me add to,
Mhm.
add to that. You're talking, the storage units are
The storage
retail?
unit.
Well, how do you know what's in those storage
Well,
units?
that's the
How do
next
you
thing I
know
was gonna-
that's not gonna impact?
Can you just let me
The
finish,
land.
please? That was the next thing I was gonna bring up. Because going down Mike's list, Mike talks about the concern about hazardous waste, and such that would be in there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, I know you already have self-storage, what are your rules and regulations and the such like that associated with how
Yeah,
you use the business?
Yeah, we have a written rental agreement. The written rental agreement is a legal document, and it indicates exactly what they can and can't do when they rent that space. It's very explicit about what can't be stored in there, such as gasoline and propane and hazardous materials. So So it's quite an extensive document that is used as a rental agreement when a person comes to rent a space.
I used their rental space before you owned it in Lebanon, and it was a very strict rental agreement that I looked at. That's why I asked that question about that. It still doesn't prevent it, but it says that their agreement says you cannot do that. And whether that's gonna be
There's a
adhered
yeah,
to.
right. Lot more control than over a homeowner, a neighbor.
Sure,
You
you
have no
can
idea what's
have-
going on in a homeowner's house. you know,
Have a
right?
meth lab next to you.
Yeah, right.
We gotta consider that they're gonna be beholden to their insurance company
Most definitely.
to prevent storage of 10,000 gallons of gasoline in the self-storage.
You're responsible for due diligence, yes.
There's some assurance there that they can't just willy-nilly allow people to build in that way.
And I understand, going down your list, Mike, is lighting, signing, and screening, to me, is a real issue. You know, with any property. Is that ours, or is that the planning board to deal with?
I think it's planning board, but I think it's planning board, frankly.
Hours of operation, you know, it is limited. There's gonna be two gates, I assume. One on Flanders Street and one on 4A, or is there no entrance from 4A, from 4 at all?
For the car wash, there's no gate. at
No,
the
no,
front
I'm
door.
talking if we're going into the self-storage.
Yeah, we would envision another gate that'll be permanently locked, and we'd only use it for snow removal, probably. Let me just point.
Oh, where the two connect?
Yeah, where the two connect. So there'll be, there's a fence that goes all the way down here and then back up here. Here, someplace here, there'll probably be gates so we could get snow out of there or so, but it'll be permanently locked and it won't open and close like this gate over here. So again, self-storage customers will come in this way. We can get into self-storage. This gate will be open and closed.
So this is good. This
I
is
don't know
great,
if it's-
but it's Bergeron. And if this goes to
It
somebody else,
doesn't matter, it's a land use.
that's what I'm,
This
that's
is
what I'm
what is
explaining.
concerning us.
It's, I'm
See,
glad I don't own a house.
You know, see, I gotta take the other side of that, is that I put it on the people who designed what the CB was, and didn't, they just were too lazy to go beyond just 350 feet back from the road. I just have a hard time with the way the line was drawn arbitrarily.
Well, you shouldn't, because it's there and it's a law. That's the way it is. And what
mean-
I'm saying is that it's not what the zoning ordinance wants to have happen. They would like to see more residential. And it's residential, and you know it's gonna make the property values go down.
Why do you
It's
know that?
not right.
Why do you know that?
Why would they go
Why
down?
would they go down?
Let's,
Well,
this
would
is
you
for us
like
right
to
now,
live
sorry.
across from,
Yeah, this is,
Yeah, we need to be able
commercial
to discuss it without
business?
interruption.
Sorry.
if I was to go buy a house, oh, I'm not going there, they got that.
Susan,
I
So
think
the
it's,
way I understand it is, he puts it in a storage unit, he gets sick of it and he tears it down. That piece is still C1, right? R1, whatever it is, that piece would still be R1. So somebody else could not necessarily put another kind of a business there.
Right, they still have a variance for a self-storage unit, or self-storage unit business.
Yes, but not for anything else.
so, wait, is it for a self-storage business or that has just been made commercial, that they could put something up? Like, can we say, okay, this is fine as long as it's a self-store, we'll accept the change to the
That's one of the conditions.
designation, okay.
We can't change the designation, but what we can do is we can say the owners of the property, be they this people or the next people to buy it, may have a self-storage unit here, subject to these conditions, and the conditions could be as approved by the planning board.
Sure.
And they may be able to challenge for, expansion of current use and make it a little bigger, but something like
My feeling is, under normal circumstances, I would probably be against such a thing. But the fact of the matter is that when you draw that line up there, the majority of the property is already zoned for commercial. So it's not as if you're saying, if they wanted to now, aside from the fact of the self-storage, if they wanted to, they could put conceivably something right even nastier, right up to the very line of that's commercial. I don't know, they could put an oil refinery, whatever, I'm exaggerating, but right now, you could still, because it's commercial, put something very unpalatable up to the 350 feet.
Or even what he's talking about doing, and they could turn the building, they could do a different design that lines them up real close to each other and pave the rest of the lot. Nobody can say, boo.
Let me put a little structure around this right now. Let's go down through
Yes, please.
Yeah,
the 5 criteria.
this is still the,
Let's go through the 5 criteria. And the granting of the variance would or would not be contrary to the public interest because. So you think it would be why?
Pardon me?
Why?
Because it's in a residential district. And I think the people that live there in that residential district, it's their environment, it's their neighborhood.
yeah, I disagree. If 60% of the lot is commercial, then it's whatever, 60% is still commercial. It doesn't, that's still more a commercial lot than it is a residential lot, so the way I see it.
Hold on just a second. He's not gonna call it.
Can I not say anything at this point? I sort of agree with Madeline.
Okay.
That 60% is already commercial.
Mike, what do you? Does that make sense?
Thank you for coming.
The spirit of the ordinance.
I can follow up in tomorrow.
The spirit of the ordinance would be observed, would or would not be observed. Let's go reverse order this time. Mike, how do you feel?
I think the spirit of the ordinance is observed. I think in particular. Well, I don't have in particular what I have. I don't see any particular conflicts. One of the purposes is the harmonious development of land, and Sealy finds against that, but I find in favor of it. I think this is quite a low impact use of that land that comports with the majority zoning of the piece of property. I can imagine almost any other business use that somebody wanted to put this land to would be much worse. I think most residential uses they would want to put this land to would have a higher impact. So I think it fits in the spirit of the ordinance.
Susan, Madeline, anything to add or change?
No, I think what Mike said was right, because if you think about on the other side of the street, on Flanders Street there, the one on the corner has got a lot of units, and then there's a big apartment house, and it probably is the lowest impact thing you could do here.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it seems as if this is kind of a good solution because it does allow us to have some sort of say over the business and limit it to a business that is going to be low impact. As I said, in theory, since that property is already zoned for that, it's a way of us, making sure that something that is less desirable isn't there. If it were the other way around, that the property was 60% residential, I'd feel very different about it. But whoever owns this property finds themselves in a situation that's a fluke, that they end up with this piece of property that's split through no fault of their own. And the spirit of the ordinance would say that, since the majority of it was commercial, that was the spirit of the ordinance, that it was going to be that way. Maybe I don't like it or whatever, but that's not an issue. That's not the question.
It's unfortunate, but that is the purpose of the zoning Board of Adjustment is to give relief in strange cases like this.
And I agree with the comments that Madeline has just made too, so Celia.
Oh, you know what?
No, I know, okay. Granting the variance, I'll go first on this one because I've asked everybody else to go first. so I'll take my
Okay, it's
turn.
your turn.
Granting the variance would do substantial justice, would not do substantial justice. I believe that the lot gets one tax bill. That tax bill is associated with the use of the lot, and the appraisal goes with the use. I believe that the spirit of the ordinance is saying that in this unique situation where the lot is got a line down the middle and it's already being used for the one lot is being used commercial, one lot is being used commercial. Therefore, I believe that it is substantial justice to allow it to be used in this low impact way that we have just talked about.
That's the president's. I believe that.
You know, I agree with you on cost areas when this where it's at present, where we have the mechanic want to go in the middle of the R1, we just can't do that. There's no way we could break the zone by something like this, but on a border like this where it's mixed, that's how I feel in this one. Ladies,
Yeah, I think that substantial justice needs to be done.
Mike,
I don't have any problem with substantial justice.
for the following reasons, the value of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Again, this is one I think where we can argue both ways for the commercial development in that area. Having another business in that area, I think the value of lot 5-1 is probably going to go up. I think the value of the lot behind there may go up. The task can either make a value judgment of surrounding property, not real estate.
That's fine. That's fine. You guys, you do what you want.
Other comments on that?
We want to hear opinions. We want to hear each person's opinion.
You've heard what I
Doesn't mean we're wrong.
thought. You know, and I just think it's set the precedent. I understand where they're coming from,
Yeah.
but I also know what I'm supposed to do. And looking at all that and having neighbors come in and they're worried about it and, you know, it's a zoning ordinance and I'm not even sure if that 1 acre, if that isn't gonna change to CB if you grant this variance.
It will not change it to be. We do not change the zoning ordinance by our actions.
But you are.
No, we're
we
just
are not.
saying, in this case, we're like giving you a pass. That's basically what
That
we're
is all
saying.
we do, right? A variance is
Well, it's a hard thing to get, a variance.
Well, that's why we're talking
It's-
about it.
The last thing on here was, what's that last?
Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship.
See, I don't, the property has no special conditions.
the zoning.
I think it
strange
does.
zoning is the
It's that
special
it's this stuck between neither here nor there, so no matter what, if it were the other way around, if it were, you know, that they wanted to have it be residential on the other half of it and say, we're gonna put 20 units up, 20 residential units up there, it would be the same thing. I mean, there's over a barrel on this, that their piece of property through no fault of their own is divided this way, and they're gonna have that issue no matter what they do.
The guidance out of the courts in the last, going back as far as 10 years ago, and the case law since then has been to make it easier to get variances. Not easy, but to reduce some of the difficulties in demonstrating hardship. And in this particular, this is one of the first cases I've seen for this board where it really kind of tickles me because this is one of those special conditions that prior to studying this last year, I would never have believed constitute hardship. But this falls within that new, I hate to say new set of criteria, but the new guidance that says other things besides physical features of the
Correct.
property can contribute toward satisfying hardship. I'm
That's
thinking
true.
about your case, Ed, so long ago about the property that you bought from the town,
Mhm.
where everything was in setbacks, and you needed a variance to be able to build a garage there. That was really hard for me to accept as demonstrating hardship, but By these new standards, I think it does. So I think we've met the hardship criteria.
Susan?
This is totally off topic. I'm just wondering, when they created the zoning ordinance, and they said, commercial is 350 feet, they didn't take into account property lines and things like that.
No.
So
Yeah,
I
they do
think
that in all the
we
way
need
up
to
and down.
think about, and we are thinking about it, so I think it would be a hardship not to grant the variance, because the zoning, that whole piece was one lot. It,
You're right.
Let me just go down the findings of facts that I wrote
That
down.
was very cogent. That was right on top.
These are my words, okay? So you can change them in this finding of facts. The boundary line is the zoning boundary line is arbitrary and runs through a lot. The encroachment in R1 is a minor portion of the overall lot, like a third of the overall lot. 3, the planning board has to approve the site plan, which takes in all those other considerations that we want to talk about. 4, the use is reasonable and is the best interest of the community to have property taxes coming from a commercial business. I understand they want to have residential businesses, but we also need to have commercial businesses in town. Another car wash, hey, I'm not sure.
That's
Chris will
not bad.
come.
That's a business decision.
That's right. You're doing the investment, not me. The zoning lines need to take into consideration existing lot lines and the property is now being used for a commercial purpose.
Well, that's a good point. That's a fact.
The 6, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. So it's no unfair, I guess is how you say that. The relationship between what they want to do and the benefit to the town is, the general purpose is there.
Yeah, it's still a commercial property. It
It
remains
is,
a
right.
commercial property.
Denying them the opportunity to do what this variance requires does more harm to them than it does good to the public. Boy, I thought I was gonna be able to say that much more clearly.
It gets harder.
Sorry.
that was
Okay,
pretty clear, I got that.
There's 2 motions that I could look at, and Rob has helped me out by writing either a for or a negative motion.
That's great.
Would somebody like to make a motion in favor of the variance or not in favor?
I
I'll
will,
have them read it versus me.
I will.
Read the top one, and then we can go from there.
That's the,
I think that- I move that the Enfield Zoning Board of Adjustment grant BMB Real Estate a variance to Enfield zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 401.1, to allow for a self-storage business to be constructed and operated in the R1 residential zoning district. The subject property is located in 223 US Route 4, tax map 33, lot 5, and is currently owned by Walter Brown III and Janine Brown. This parcel is partially located within both the CB district and the R1 district.
I would like to amend the motion to add conditions.
What condition, just,
well,
So
that
we
it's
would-
for
we
the
would
purpose of
discuss-
the self.
We would discuss these conditions, then vote whether to add them to the motion. Okay.
so
Just let you know. So my first condition would be.
let's get a second to the motion, then we'll table the
Second.
motion. Okay, we're going to table the motion, entertain amendments.
So I would first amend it to add the condition that the variance only granted if the sale goes through. If we don't say that, then this variance is granted to the property regardless of whether that sale goes through.
Can we also say that the variance is granted solely for the purpose of building a self-storage? Because somebody
Yes,
could also
that's
say,
in
oh, we
the
got this, the
It
thing, let's
says
put
that,
up
it says
on,
uses of self-storage.
okay,
That's in there.
it's specified, okay. Sorry, I had a moment to.
From My conditions were that it be contingent upon the sale of the property. And the second condition I wanted was an hours of operation condition. What did you guys want to run ahead?
So it's 7 AM to 7 PM, or 7 to 7. We're open 7 AM to 7 PM,
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Does anybody think 6 AM to 7 PM would be?
No, 7.
ridiculous?
It's too early.
Just for personal use, when I had furniture in mind, when I wanted to get there, it was usually after work and trying to do something. And getting there in the morning when I wanted to get something out of it was furniture.
What I'm thinking about is the person that pulls up with the U-Haul in the morning, wakes up the neighborhood banging and slamming. That happens once. People throw a fit.
Wait, so why are you saying 6?
I'm just thinking about how early is too early. For me, 10 AM is too early. So I can't use my judgment.
But 7 seems fair. If somebody wants to do something before they go to work, that gives them.
So if we were gonna put in this condition, I'd say, yeah, 7 AM to 7 PM.
You
And
know,
it's
you-
not because of that, it's because.
You
of
brought
future.
up another good point about people driving in with the trucks and U-Hauls and, I mean, that's what's gonna happen. 'Cause that's
Yeah, it
gonna
is.
be, you know,
And then
and
when it
that's,
opens,
I'm not sure people are thinking about that.
I think when it opens, it'll be more frequent for a while, but after the units are all loaded up, I think you'll have a regular and small amount of traffic. May not feel small to the people that have lived there forever
you
and
could
have
say
seen
that.
10 cars a day on that road.
Well, then when people don't pay their rent and they have a big auction, it's gonna be interesting.
I'm gonna be right there.
Okay,
You gotta make sure you let us
I
know.
hope the planning board will insist that your driveway is permeable. I think that in the future, and not in the far distant future, we are going to need to worry about water.
Is that a condition that you want to put on the,
We
we're talking about
can't, that's a
conditions right
planning board condition.
I want to go home, and so I'd like to keep the top of the discussion.
Yeah,
But
Susan,
I want it out there in the air.
So the third condition I'd want to attach is about the traffic between the two lots. And I don't know how to say that. Not lot, but two businesses.
Well, that the entrance to it be exclusively for people going to getting access to the storage unit.
The R1 section, I would probably say that the R1 section of the property cannot be used for any portion of the business in the CB section. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, I mean, right now they've got it planned so that the entrance is in the.
Right,
commercial
it's
section.
Bergeron, so the next people come
Right.
along and they open up that snow plowing gate because they think there'll be better traffic flow if they do that. And it's trivial cost for them to add another card reader at that gate, so now they have an entrance and exit, one-way traffic. That's great for them. It's not too long before they open up those gates full time and put a stamp HUD in there. I'm pulling stuff out of the blue sky. just to
Yeah,
answer
no,
your
I
concern.
don't,
Like you could say that there
Let me just
remained to be a gate between the two
is
sides
the
of the business.
Not to be used by customers.
Yes,
exclusive
that's-
retail customer entrance is on the existing driveway on Flanders Street.
I like that.
Say it again, please.
Is there a point at which we can ask for, we can comment on any of these at some point before you go?
Yeah, it's, as I said, retail entrance on this site. It doesn't exclude you from putting your gate for your use. I said the exclusive retail customer entrance is on the existing driveway on Flanders Street. I'm not excluding you putting your other gate for your use.
Yeah, and my only comment was, some of what I just heard sounds like you're restricting what I can already do you're restricting my CB zone to non-CB use, which I'm not sure.
This is only,
No, we don't
this
wanna
is
do that.
only the,
That's not the intent.
Yeah, and so, like I said, the gate is not, it's gonna be in CB zone. And so restricting how I can use the gate when it's in the CB zone, that's my concern.
I'm just
How
saying that
we
the
use
existing,
R1 zone, absolutely, that should pertain to the variance.
all I'm
not the
saying is that
CB
the
zone.
existing entrance will be over the existing driveway. Otherwise, you gotta go for another driveway permit anyway.
seems to be that that would also be the question that somebody would complain
that
because they
correct?
were not using, you know,
If they
that
had
that would
another
be dealt with if they were
have to
using
have
it
another
the
cut.
R1 in a non-R1 way that people could.
And let me read what we have, and then I'll
Yeah.
let you guys comment on it and the rest, so. I'm reading your revised motion, okay, revised motion. I make a motion that the Enfield zoning board of adjustment grant BMD real estate a variance to the Enfield zoning ordinance article 4, section 401.1 to allow for a self-storage business to be constructed and operated in the R1 residential zone district. Subject property is located at 223 US Route 4, tax map 33, lot 5, and is currently owned by Walter Brown III and Janine Brown. This parcel is partially located within both the CB district and the R1 district, contingent on the sale of the property to BMD Real Estate. Hours of operation are to be limited to 7 AM to 7 PM. The exclusive retail customer entrance to the storage business will be on the existing driveway on Flanders Street.
Don't say I make a motion. I said I move. That's how you do it.
Okay. That feels sketchy, or does that work for you? I'm not too worried about you guys. I'm worried about the future.
So the concern in what you had said maybe 10 minutes ago about the commercial entity traffic can't back into the R1 zone made sense to me.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
that made sense to me.
That's just me talking, but
Right. So again, what I want to say, we could put the car wash within the CB zone up where that driveway is right now.
Sure.
And you couldn't tell,
Sure.
you couldn't tell me, Bruce, you can't let car wash customers use the Flanders entrance because it's in the CB zone. So I just wanted to make sure that the CB zone isn't limited by the restrictions that you're going to put on the R1 zone. You can limit the use of the R1 zone.
I just did a limitation on it by saying that you're gonna use the existing driveway.
Well, the self-storage is an existing driveway, which is in the CB zone.
Correct.
And that's, to
So
me,
you-
that's fine. That's not a
Okay,
limitation at all.
that's
That's
one,
fine.
okay.
I have no problem with that.
I just don't want the traffic backing up into the, I don't want the car wash traffic backing up into the self-storage and in the R1 district.
So, yeah,
Like doesn't let-
so, yeah, I understand that concern, and so I just want to make sure the motion specifies, we don't want the car wash traffic backing up into the R1 zone. The car wash traffic can back up into the CB zone, but not the R1 zone. That's what I want to, make sure.
So
that
how do we,
distinction.
how do we structure this so that the property owner, so that it's easy for the property owner to enforce that? And that it's not easy for them to neglect it.
Yeah,
Could
so.
we say that something like only the residential zone can only, the R1 can only be used for access of the owners of the storage units or whatever, so that you're saying that the exception to the residential thing is tied to the use of only those units. You see what I'm saying? So we're saying, so it's almost like a positive,
Yeah.
more of a positive saying,
So we would say that, let me restate that.
Yes, thank you.
Traffic in the R1 section of the property may only access the storage facility.
Yeah, be used for, to carry out the activities associated with the storage unit.
You're saying that.
What if you said this variance exists until the property is sold? And then the variance is gone. Can you do that?
Variance goes with
Or is
that.
the variance permanent?
Special exception, you could do that, but not a variance. Variance goes with the land.
I'm sorry?
Variance goes with the land, a special exception. You could do that with, but this is a variance, so no, you can't.
We can't put a condition on it that it expires, the transfer of property.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know. the answer. I don't think so.
Rob,
Rob,
What's the question?
I don't think so. Can we put a condition that says the variance expires with transfer of title?
I don't think so.
Well,
So this is not adequate then as far as saying that the exclusive retail customer entrance to these storage units is on the existing driveway on Flanders Street.
I think that what the workaround for that was to say that the area currently designated R1 is to be used only for customer access to the storage units. Is
Yes.
that what we want to say?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Whee!
The portion of the lot in the R1 district may only be used by customers to access their storage units.
Well, that's
So wait,
nice.
then he could put a gate any place he wants on the,
That's fine.
up on the R1 side of, up on Flanders Street.
If you want to put another condition that limits where the gate goes, that's okay with me. But I think that's planning board.
Well,
Or
putting
is
the
that just
gate
me
further
saying
down
that?
Flanders Street makes no sense at all.
I've had some of the neighbors across the street, again, when I asked them, was there any concerns or any suggestions you had? The only one they said is, could you please move the gate a little further up Flanders Street, Flanders Street? So when cars are coming and going, it's not pointing right in my living room. Because right now the people who are coming and going, it goes in their living room. So they wanted me to move it a little further up the hill.
Yeah,
Do you want me to
15
say
dash.
again what we think that condition should be?
Please, yes.
Okay. The portion of the lot designated R1 may only be used by customers for accessing their storage units.
That's perfect.
Kind of, I bet a lawyer could find a hole in that.
Yeah, but
Say
if it
customers of
stops
what?
being, if
Right.
it stops being a storage facility and the storage units are gone, then nobody
We
can
won't
go
be
on
here, we
it.
won't be here and somebody else. will be able to-
So what that does for me is it means that people waiting for the car wash can't line up on that property.
Which is, I mean, when you think of just the way it's set up, and that doesn't really make sense. I mean, why would you,
Well, they do it in Lebanon because they
right,
have
because of the way
30 to
that,
40 cars waiting.
right.
Where is your car wash in Lebanon?
I have waited that long.
I have, no, I just go away.
Mechanic Street,
Oh, where?
Mechanic Street off exit 19,
You know
Where the Jake's
Coffee-
Coffee
Jake's
is.
Coffee, Jake's Coffee Company.
Next to the where
In
the
the car
lighting
wash,
store
behind the
used to
car
be.
wash in Lebanon,
Across from Gardner Supply.
service buddy.
That's some kind of a brand new building and a perfect.
Yeah.
unit.
Right
No,
next
it's
to
larger
Oh,
now.
Jake's Coffee Shop?
Yes.
That's, yeah,
Oh, okay, where I go to that, yeah, okay.
yeah,
I
that's
know
there
where it
too.
is.
You gonna put a coffee shop in here?
In here? No.
Come
We're
on.
we're working on that in the end.
No, Brian's putting a coffee shop in his.
Time out, I want to go home
Yeah,
sometime. tonight.
Yeah, let's go, let's
Sorry.
finish up.
I make a motion that the Enfield zoning board of adjustment grant R
I
and D.
move, now I make a motion. Well, he gave it to me,
I'm changing it.
thank you.
I move that the Enfield zoning board of adjustment grant BMB real estate a variance to Enfield zoning ordinance article 441 to allow for a self-storage business to be constructed and operated in the R1 residential zone district. Contingent on this, okay. The portion of the lot designated R1 can only be used by customers for access to their units. The subject property is located at 223 US Route 4, and it is currently owned by Walter Brown, Parcel is partially located within both the CB and the R1 district, contingent on the sale of the property to BMB Real Estate. Hours of operation to be limited to 7 AM to 7 PM. Then the next thing is, tell me if this should still be any of the exclusive retail customer entrance to the storage unit is over the existing driveway on Flanders Street.
No, that's the part that was substituted by the,
That takes out, okay.
yes.
Okay, I've done 2 readings, this will be a third and final reading.
Would you
I
like
don't think
somebody
we did
else to read it?
You gotta read my writing?
I'll see if I can, I'll give it a try.
I'll do this one for Whitney, so a little bit slower. I move that the Enfield zoning board of adjustment grant BMB real estate a variance to Enfield zoning ordinance article 4, section 401.1 to allow for a self-storage business to be constructed and operated in the R1 residential zone district. A portion of the lot designated R1 can only be used by customers for access to their units. The subject property is located at 223 US Route 4, tax map 33, lot 5. It is currently owned by Walter Brown III and Janine Brown. The parcel is partially located within both the CB district and the R1 district. Contingent on the sale of the property to BMB Real Estate. Hours of operation is limited to 7 AM to 7 PM. Good enough?
Right about hours or whatever.
Thank you.
The hours of operation, just for the self-storage, right? Not the garbage.
Because that's all we're doing is just the, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a 24-hour car wash, an automatic car wash?
No, the car wash will also, I think we usually have them close at 8 at night. I think usually they reopen at 6 AM.
That's when you need to go, Mike. 6.
This,
Celia would like to read something to us, please.
this is from
Never.
the, our handbook. And it's, the spirit of the ordinance is observed, and it goes on, but a paragraph says, however, when the ordinance contains a restriction against a particular use of the land, the Board of Adjustment would violate the spirit and intent of the ordinance by allowing that use. If an ordinance prohibits industrial and commercial uses in a residential neighborhood, granting permission for that, for such activities would be a doubtful legality. Again, the board cannot change the ordinance. And that's from the ZBA handbook under the spirit of the ordinance.
Except we're not changing the
We're
ordinance.
not changing the ordinance.
You know what?
We're not
Oh.
changing the ordinance.
Our intent about that doesn't matter. They're just,
Yeah.
they're pointing out that
Good point.
we aren't changing.
Susan, this was your motion. Do you have a second?
I don't have to read it.
No, you don't.
again,
This
do
is
I?
your motion.
It's my motion. I moved it.
I seconded it.
Seconded. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4 ayes. All opposed, say nay. Nay, 1 opposed. You have your use variance subject to actually planning board is the other part of this. Too.
They can't do it.
Okay.
Planning board approval.
Okay, you have your use, we okay there? Everything's copacetic, my young
As long
friend?
as she's got everything she needs.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
all very
thank you for your time and service.
please do your best to work with your neighbors. I know you
Yeah,
do, so.
yeah,
Always
yeah.
do.
Like I said, we talked to all of them, and the other ones aren't here because they were fine with it. We mailed them all before we mailed them.
Make
You
it
might point-
permeable.
You might point out to them to have a look at your drinks and then feel what it looks like when, after it's closed. You know, imagine the gas pumps aren't there, but look at the store. What does it look like when it's closed?
It looks
Dim,
in my kitchen window,
quiet,
Mike. The
fairly
lights
calm.
are in my kitchen window from Jake's. I kid you not. Come look through my kitchen window.
I'm not saying that. it's
There
Get
perfect.
out of here
Good
while you're
night.
ahead.
Thank you. Good luck.
Just to soothe his soul.
They are on all night. There's
Susan,
4 lights.
Susan,
Okay, let's go through our minutes. Let's go. You guys on our way down to the minutes?
Oldest ones?
Yeah, we have
Please, yes.
2. September
where are we?
14th.
September 14th minutes.
September.
And I found some things.
We have minutes for September and for
And October.
October.
Yeah.
Starting with September.
Yes,
I don't
please.
have the October minutes.
They're in the,
Wait, why don't,
Sure. So we're doing September right now?
All I've
Yes.
got September.
why do we have one that's
All
September
I've got is
14th?
October.
Why do I have a
There's
3-page
October.
one and a
Yeah, I
11-page
got
one?
October.
So remember, one of those meetings, all we did, and I don't think you were here for that one, but
Oh, that was.
it was the one that just went like that. And it was the one where we
Patola.
I do
were
have
forced by
October
the
and I
court
did
to.
do
Oh,
it.
right,
Patola.
okay.
So let's do the simple one first. Let's do the October. That's the total one, right?
Would
No,
be
the
up to-
October's no, I have two September 14th ones.
I
Why
have
would I-
September
There's one
14th
for
and
the
an October
executive
12th.
session where we were in the other room.
Oh, okay,
And then there's what they
okay.
start out, they almost look like.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
from the
right,
beginning.
okay, got
Yeah.
it. Now it's all clear to me. Yes, all right.
I guess we should do the September one
I
first
have
and then the
September.
October.
Chairman,
Yes,
I move we approve the minutes of the executive session of September 14th, 2021.
I second the.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, so now we're into the regular session on September 14th, and we're going in that direction. Let's do that.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes.
I would just like to make
There
one.
will be discussion.
Okay.
For a second.
I second the,
I promise.
any discussion?
Now
Yes,
we discuss.
Okay.
11 pages worth.
Yeah, no, I didn't get through all of them, but I did want to just say that it's always in all of them. There's no need to put roll call in quotation marks.
Okay.
It's just a roll call. That
Roll
happens,
call.
Or you
is
could
sarcastic.
just say, or you
Yeah.
could
That
say,
was read.
you could say took attendance.
yeah, or whatever. And another general observation, the word, I know it's popular usage, but the word share should literally only be for like, I'm sharing my chocolate bar with you, or I shared the screen, otherwise just use plain old fashioned said.
Yes.
I'm glad that she said that to us.
I can do just like a find and replace overall. for that
Exactly,
kind of
but
stuff,
there is a
yeah.
place where somebody, I was gonna say do a global replace, but there's a shared a screen and that's okay.
Yeah,
But not shared, you know.
Verbally.
as-
An
as-
opinion.
What?
Sharing an opinion.
In line 43.
I would just say, say.
Yeah.
He said, you don't need, because then you're saying it's an opinion or not, just say he said.
Line 43, change introduced to said. And line 57, I think it's application.
Yeah, not on the applicated.
Yeah. On line 61 and 62. You should say a brief explanation of the lots to the ZBA and guest is moved of the lots up to after explanation. It says, Mr. Taylor projected the tax map and provided a brief explanation. And then you should say of the lots to the ZBA and guests.
Okay.
And then it's a general thing, and it happens a lot. You said, go down to line 65.
Oh, yeah.
It should, instead of,
No comment.
well, there's, no.
Or ask
No, no,
if
no,
we
no,
had
wait.
heard.
You either have to turn it into a question, ask, comma, quotation marks, capital H, or you could put a colon there, and then he's asked, and then you would have we heard from the abutters? And there are a lot of places where you have asked, and then it's not quite correct. And I'll give you this.
Or you could just say, asked if we had heard from a butters.
Yes, there's
And then
there's
no
several
question
ways
mark
to
it.
do it.
Yeah.
And
We're picking
then-
at this because this goes into, this can be read by judges in an appeal.
sure.
And if the grammar isn't correct, the meanings are ambiguous.
Yeah, no worries. I get it. I don't mind being picked out at all.
Good.
No worries at all.
Okay, yeah.
on page 3, and I think this happens all the time with us, where you have 2, 3, 4, and 5. The thing is, the spirit of the ordinance is observed, period, because that's the rule, that you don't put a question mark after it. And so,
If you mean to ask the question.
yeah,
Yeah,
substantial
is the
justice
spirit,
is
yeah.
done, period. Value of surrounding properties are diminished, period.
These are the topics we're discussing at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on line 101, you need, after noted, you need a that.
And
Chair
no comma.
McLaughlin noted that the characteristics of the land, etc.
Not a comment.
And no comma.
And then I didn't quite understand around line 1, 12, 13, 14. Vice Chair Johnson noted that the map they were reviewing was not accurate to the clearing of the house.
You want to say with respect to the clearing?
Well, what's clearing mean there
What
of the
was under,
house?
what was under the trees, what was under the trees? They had it clear, the map didn't tell you how
So fix it.
associated with the trees, if I remember correctly.
I don't
Was it
remember.
the GIS map?
Yeah.
That
Was not
it was like an
accurate
older-
about the clearing where the
About
house
clearing of
is.
Where the house,
Did not accurately depict the clearing of the house, is
Yeah.
perhaps
The
what,
clearing in which the house is situated.
yeah.
and you asked for a
The
satellite.
clearing in
map,
which the house is situated. Now that makes sense. I know it's more words.
Vice
Sorry.
Chair Johnson noted that the map they were reviewing did not accurately depict the clearing in which the house is situated.
Yeah.
Really? You
And
got
then,
that?
in line 119, I think you meant precedents,
Yeah.
TS.
Precedents is an ordering. Precedents are previous,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
previous decisions on which we base our current decision.
These are excellent
And
notes,
I
by the way,
didn't
thank you.
understand in line 157, 158. She plans to have the business a smaller site and not very large.
Yeah, I had that marked as well.
It isn't clear to me what we meant or what she said.
This site shared with the facility, there would be about 10 horses on site. She plans to have the
Would it be like the size?
Maybe
with
she
regards to
means
overall
the
property?
business, like the, I don't know, where she sits at a desk and does accounting or something. I don't know.
I didn't understand that.
She plans to have the business be smaller.
These- And not very large. You know, either it's gonna be two aspects she was talking about. It's not gonna take up all the property, so it's gonna be a small footprint on the property, but I don't think it's that one. I think she's planning a relatively small business and not a very big one.
She plans to have,
Smaller business than the previous owner.
And not a very large,
No, because this was the horseback riding lady. Were you here? for
Oh,
that?
yes, at the sand pit.
Yes.
Right.
she
Maybe like a
plans,
smaller portion of the property?
this is the
That would
September
work.
14th.
Plans,
Oh,
she envisions a
Smaller
smallish
business on this side?
yeah,
She does.
and then,
Hey, I'm on camera. Susan, you're on camera.
yeah, the.
There was two things she talked about. It was not gonna take up all of the land. Addressing a lot of Celia's points about a lot of the land was gonna be left as was and getting back to the natural flow. But she's also gonna have a smaller business because she's only gonna have like 10 horses and training and things like that. She doesn't wanna.
Right, which is what she's talking about here. There would be about 10 horses on site and additional stalls. She plans to have the business be the smaller site.
I think she is speaking colloquially, and she means, when she says it's gonna be a smaller business, she's not saying it's gonna be smaller than what I had
Right.
previously. She means this is not going to be an enormous business. This is gonna be a small business.
Small business, not a very large.
Why don't we just say that's,
Could we just delete that sentence?
Yes.
Because prior to this, right, she says she only
Yeah,
wants.
That's a good idea.
exactly. Let's just get rid of it. Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
I found a bunch of stuff on, starting on page 5, where it was asked and then it was, either you gotta put commas and quotation marks, or you gotta say asked if or asked would, or all those sorts of things.
Yep.
I'll give you my paper,
Oh, that'd be great, yeah.
and
Yeah.
then,
At 189, I'd like to say, Ms. Alfiero noted her concern is the prime wetlands, and she would like to see them protected.
yes. And then, line 220, you got an extra it. And then on line 266, there's a sentence that says the 50-foot access strip. Period. And you lost me on that one.
It was 266.
Yeah, on page page 7.
Potential future owners would know that the garage is closer to the boundary than zoning permits.
The 50-foot access strip is really a range, but.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I think it was probably, I would probably try to do either one or the other than what the zoning is or than the 50-foot access.
Yeah,
You should
I
just delete
wasn't
that.
sure. And there's another one of those acts in 289.
Do we want to keep the 50-foot access reference there and just make it like,
It makes no sense
okay, so just delete that
Makes no sense.
section.
unless you want to go back on the tape. I don't
But
think
it's a
we're losing
range
anything.
and you gotta have a range to get to a lot that doesn't have a road.
Okay, so just zoning
Oh,
permits.
that's what you're talking about there is the right of way
Yeah, it's a range.
range.
It's French, wrong. It's how you get to the back of a lot in New Hampshire.
It's called a range.
When it's landlocked, when you're on the roads, you have a range.
Oh, I
And it's
didn't-
50 feet wide.
I thought it's called a right of way.
And the
Okay,
range says,
you could change, say there exists a 50-foot right of way or range.
if they're 50-foot right of way, more people might understand it. But there needs to exist. In line 292, I think Vice
which may not be-
Chair Johnson said it seemed important, but then instead of asking what it said. Oh.
We're not adjourned yet, sir. People won't know who I am.
On line 297 to about 299, 300, I didn't understand it, and it should,
You got question marks where there shouldn't be.
well, it doesn't make sense to me. Mr. Sanborn noted he would ask for a motion that approves the variance with the condition that the subdivision is approved. Mr. Taylor clarified something or other, the variance approval could be worded to say that it would be a variance. And then reverse we and would. But I got lost in there, so
I think I can make sense of this.
good.
Chair McLaughlin asked Mr. Taylor if, because no property line exists, ZBA would not have a way.
Not have a boundary to approve the setback from.
You're saying there is no property line?
Maybe it's easier to ask Mr. Taylor if there were no property line, would the ZBA, it's a conditional thing.
No. Because there's no property line.
This was the two lots owned by the same people,
Well,
right?
you're stuck with 3 English teachers.
Holy cow. All right, I remember this. There's no property line, and somebody was talking about setbacks from the dividing line in the center of the lot. It's not a property line. Ed said, hey, Rob, if there's no property line there, why are we talking about setbacks? Essentially what he said. He said, since there's not going to be a property line there, there are no setbacks. Why are we talking about
So
this?
it'd be Chair McLaughlin asked Mr. Taylor if without a property line,
Might be better said.
because there's
Chair
too many
McLaughlin
negatives here.
He pointed out there's no property line from which there would be setbacks.
My response was that it was a subdivision.
Mr. Taylor deferred to
Subsequent.
Mr. Sanborn, he said.
So are you saying there is a property line?
There is that.
There
So
wasn't
they
at the
came
time
for
of
the
our-
variance. They came for the variance first
So there was no property line then.
at the time, exactly.
Right, so it has to reflect what was said at our meeting, not the fact that a property line was eventually created.
Unless,
Correct, but that's what I think I explained that to you guys at that time. That was what-
Yeah, but-
He asked, why are we
but
doing a
what's
setback for a
written here
line?
doesn't make any sense.
oh,
to
there, oh, that's great. Chair McLaughlin asked, why are we considering setbacks from a property line that doesn't yet exist?
And Administrator
okay.
Taylor said
That was the essence of the
that
question.
that there was a plan for a subdivision there. That's why we were doing it.
Well, fix this up, fix that.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Ms. 307, Ms. Lozo noted that she is in a butter.
Yeah, stop saying noted.
Yeah, just said,
Don't say
said,
noted. Unless
said.
you mean somebody's
Said.
writing something down and making
Yeah,
a note
it
of it,
said
don't say noted.
Can you just tell me the line number again for that one?
307.
Thank you.
And after a butter, I put a semicolon that noted, said that she is in a butter,
Semicolon.
comma, semicolon. She has no objection.
And I would take out the question mark after on line 310.
We'll use noted where
Because,
we want.
yeah,
Not my business.
and I think 319 distribution is disturbance.
Disturbance, yeah, disruption or just.
Suppose at least disruption of the area.
Yeah. Line 344. He provided an overview that there are not significant differences between the 216 and 219 versions, which have previously been discussed that there were significant differences.
That's what we thought they were, and they weren't.
Yeah. I
But
think
that
that's your-
doesn't make sense.
Wait, which line are you talking about?
343 to 45.
might say he provided an he said that
Not
yeah,
different.
there were no significant differences between the 2016 and 2019 versions, even though previously it had been thought there were.
And that's better.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Yes.
again with the clarify, just you said,
Yeah, I can go through and kind of.
yeah, it just is.
English teachers told us to use lots of variety in our, to spice up the language. We don't want that,
Yeah,
all right?
yeah,
Later.
Make it
Okay,
plain and simple.
eventually.
Oh, yeah, you will.
yeah, or George Orwell
Okay, are
said
we
it,
done now?
yeah.
No, you still got the October, what is it? That's not that much.
Was that the 5-minute meeting?
Really good
Okay.
Thank
job.
you so much.
Well, that
Okay,
was
all
not
those in
fun.
favor of approval of the September 14th minutes as revised, say aye.
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 Thank God.
I move we approve the
October,
Department of Public Works, I'm sorry, the
We
Enfield
still
zoning
got
board of
October-
adjustment
we
minutes
got October minutes.
of October the 12th.
Yeah.
October 12th.
I'll say it again because I was talking over.
Fine.
I move that we approve the minutes of the October 12th meeting of the ZBA.
I second that motion. Owen, any discussion?
That roll call in quotes in line 20.
I'll just adjust that on my template too.
It's
so-
line 18.
And line 43, they got introduced and replace it with said. And you don't
What are
need.
you looking at?
Yeah.
Line 43, where do you see introduced? Teresa and Andra Petal have requested a variance.
You're in the
You
wrong
guys-
thing there.
I'm in the wrong
No,
one?
no, you're in the right one there. Susan's in the wrong one.
You're on September 14th. We're on October
We're on October 12th.
12th.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause,
Yeah, we've moved
I don't
to,
want to go back to October 12th.
you do want to go back?
No. I do not.
I don't
Yes,
know,
let's, wait, didn't we move that we were going to approve the October 12th?
Yes.
Yes,
I
it's seconded, any discussion is over on right now, discussion.
Yes, I have nothing to discuss.
I don't know.
I don't know, I don't find it. I thought
Well,
I
this
had
is the one you said you didn't have. This is the one you said
it.
you
You
didn't
have
have.
it. I
Give it
think
to her
you
right
have
there.
it, too.
Here you are, Steve.
Here.
Susan.
It's short.
That's a 3-page one you talked about.
Well, roll call again.
Yeah, she said she's going to correct that on her master document.
There wasn't anything in this, was there?
Good, we're done. Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous? Okay, now we're gonna take a vote. We have the zoning board of adjustments, New Hampshire rules,
Anybody need a copy of it?
rules of procedure.
Move we
The
adopt
ones
them.
that we wrote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Move, we
I make a
second the motion.
Okay, Susan moved, we adopt them. Mike seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Where's the agenda again? I lost my
We're done.
What did I do with my agenda? Anybody have an agenda?
Right, oh, we gotta sign it. Oh, we gotta sign it.
Check you guys adopt the rules of procedure, put a signed copy in file.
Okay. who's got an agenda? There it is, I got it.
Oh, sorry, did
I
I
got it.
pick it up? Pick
No,
up-
I got it, I just-
Sweep up yours with red
Yeah.
all mine.
Our next meeting is scheduled for January the 11th.
Okay.
I'm just giving notice that I will not be able to be present physically, but I will be on a Zoom
On
call from
Zoom,
Hawaii.
okay.
So
Going back again, aren't you?
If
I'll do
necessary.
my grandkids, so that's great.
I will make an effort to fix in my mind that I am still on this board.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank you for coming, Mike. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm
yes, you're,
sorry,
not only
appreciate
that, you are essential on this board.
We appreciate everything you do, Mike.
Thank you.
You're gonna start with it. I love that.
Just kind of got it out of my head, so.
Yeah.
That's why it's here.
No, please don't,
That
because
is such a great
what's his
tool to have.
name?
No, It's
doesn't
amazing.
come.
Oh,
Brian.
yeah, I understand that. And I'm happy to be here. It's just when he's here, I go a little crazy.
Okay, Thank you, sir.
So,
Oh,
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, everybody.
it's
You
fine.
do a great job. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
I wish
I'm on
it was
another
read
board
law.
for, over at the VA where I ended up being
Or just,
the
yeah.
secretary.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've done it for the National Lakeside Park and stuff like that. But this is a contentious board,
Yeah.
and it's a bunch of doctors,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just, you know, the
Did you
kids,
say that?
Challenging.
it's not recorded.
Yeah. And it's not recorded, so you can't, oh, no, that would be really
Did you
hard.
guys know that all of your meetings are now on YouTube? Did you
Sorry,
know
what? And just what?
Oh, that's
Is
right.
it narcissist? Ryan,
There's now a
You guys do a
YouTube
motion
channel.
to adjourn?
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw that. That's great.
And these meetings are now.
We're adjourned.
Okay.
Make the motion, you second it? You second it?
yeah.
All in favor, say aye. At 9 o'clock.
oh, I thought that it was.
Everybody have a very nice holiday.